Is it weird that my personal cultural touchstone for Yakety Yak is actually the Nickelodeon's 2000 show? Because I could not get that out of my head. Hello interwebs and welcome to my review of WandaVision episodes 1 and 2, and I'm sure I speak for all of us to say I am so excited that the MCU is finally back. I mean, it has been a hell of a year, and I totally understand why we did not get any MCU movies, but dear heavens, I needed this. I just needed this in my soul right now. I am just so excited, and it is honestly a great return for the MCU, but may not be to everybody's taste. So let's dive into my review of the first couple episodes of WandaVision. And I will say, because there have been a ton of non-spoiler reviews out, because a lot of people got screeners for these episodes and I did not, I'm just gonna go full bore spoilers with this episode, because I feel like doing the non-spoiler stuff, everyone's already heard the non-spoiler stuff for these episodes, so I'm just gonna have to go full bore into spoilers. However, I will be doing speculation at the end of this video, so sort of like potential spoilers going forward, so my sort of speculation on what's to come in the show. So if you want my speculation parts, that'll be at the end of the video. So if you haven't seen the episode, go watch them. So diving into these episodes, it is so clear that these episodes and this show is not the MCU as we normally would expect it. As much as I love the MCU, they had gotten into kind of a formula. And yes, they were messing with it here and there. Yes, they were doing kind of new and different things, but they very much had their own superhero mold and formula that they really had just fine-tuned to a T. And that's what we loved the MCU for. But what I'm really appreciating this show for, and I hope it's the template for the Marvel shows going forward, is that it is trying a big swing with the MCU, trying something completely different that we did not expect from this show. And I personally think it's a big hit, but I can tell that it is not going to be for everybody. And I think that that's why they wanted to do this sort of swing with the television medium, because this show is very much a love letter to sitcoms, to comedies. And this one specifically, the like 50s, 60s, and 70s comedies, the sort of black and white comedies that were going on during those times with these two episodes. I personally didn't watch a lot of those comedies when I was a kid, so I don't have as much personal touchstones with them, but you can clearly tell that there's such a loving craftsmanship to the fact that basically these two episodes are just like standard sitcom plots. And I like that the show is using a television medium to tell something that you couldn't really have told with the Marvel movies. This could not have been something done with the Marvel movies as they are. This is something that could have only been done in an episodic format. While this does feel like the production level and stakes and intricacy of a Marvel movie, it is using the format, the medium of television, to tell something that only the medium of television can be. And I adore this show for that. And like I said, each episode, episode 1 and episode 2, is a loving send-up of a different type of sitcom, albeit like somewhat similar, the sort of like at-home suburban sort of husband and wife sitcom mode. But you can clearly tell that they're going through the eras with like the slight tweaks to color, the slight tweaks to sound, the slight tweaks to like the set design and the look of the house. And I just very much appreciated that. Both episodes feel like they are like the standard sitcom plot. There's the first episode is sort of like the misunderstandings between the husband and wife. The second episode is sort of like the big community thing that the husband and wife does not want to mess up. We've seen those sort of plots set up throughout the like numerous other sitcom worlds. What I love this show for is that it is using the uniqueness of Wanda and Vision in order to tell those stories. I specifically love in the second episode where Vision eats the piece of gum and it sort of gums up his works, and some wonderful like Bewitched and style animation that I absolutely loved. But the sort of like gumming up his works as a sort of robot character, sort of a cybernetic character, that leads him to like come off as drunk. And so it's using like the uniqueness of Vision and Wanda as characters to sort of play that up. And so I think that that is absolutely brilliant. And it's led to some of the best moments throughout these two episodes. I think particularly the sort of talent show in the end of episode 2, where Vision is sort of drunkenly stumbling around and Wanda has to sort of fix up his mistakes and like show off his and like try and show off the fakery of his tricks, I think worked brilliant. Is a great subversion on that trope. And again, using the characters well, because we know that they're trying to hide the fact that they are super powered from the world, and so she sort of has to sort of play off of that. It's just a nice little subversion of these tropes and using these characters in such unique ways. I will say for that scene particularly, while that was wonderful and hilarious, I did think this sort of talent show did go on a little bit too long. I probably could have done without the card trick stuff. It was just a beat too many. But I absolutely love it. Also, the other thing I love about the show is because it's evoking certain eras, it's like using like language that I love. I love them saying crackerjack and ne'er-do-wells. I just want to bring those back. Let's bring back the word ne'er-do-well back into like common usage. I would so be happy if we just like those darn ne'er-do-wells, if that just became more of a regular thing, because I need it. I think I feel like I should have like been born with like that sort of vernacular still being around, because I would use it so often, guys. You could see me saying like, oh, those darn ne'er-do-wells all the time. I don't know why I'm harping on this point, but I got like weirdly like hung up on it. I just want that word back. I also will say this episode is so strongly anchored in the performances by Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen. They obviously are no slouches in the MCU as a whole, but they were definitely second fiddle type characters throughout most of the MCU movies. But putting them front and center here, I think they just work brilliantly. Paul Bettany has such wonderful like the straight man sort of comedic timing with him, and I think he just works well, just playing that sort of like oh shucks kind of like guy character. Where Elizabeth Olsen has this wonderful like she can play that sort of like housewife character, but she has that like hint of an edge to her. She has this undercurrent of like, I will beat the crap out of you edge to her that I like sort of peeking out here and there throughout the episode, that she doesn't quite comfortably fit as the housewife, even though she can play that role. And so I really kind of enjoy the sort of like small undercurrents in both of their performances that I think really work well here. The other thing too is I am adoring the fact that I feel on edge throughout the entirety of both of these episodes. You're waiting for that other shoe to drop, and there are such little lovely bits and pieces and little hints throughout both episodes that I'm like, oh, is this the moment? Is this where the shoe gets to drop? And I'm liking the slow, like, unnerved feeling that I'm having, waiting for that shoe to drop, even amongst the sort of, like, heartwarming comedy that is done so well and, like, makes me smile. I'm just sort of waiting for that moment. Moments that I'll call out specifically that I really loved. I love Paul Bettany sort of, like, calling out the fact, like, what do we produce here? What do we make at this job? Or I love the commercials that go on between, different segments of the episode, and we get these two figures, Strucker, maybe the hint that we get in episode 2 between commercials, and that maybe he works for Hydra because the watch has the Hydra symbol on it. And so you get the effect that these two people doing these commercials are very nefarious. And I liked in the first episode that the toaster kind of had this bomb sort of feel to it, like it was going to go off. Beep, beep, beep. And I liked that you got the subtle hint of the red dot. If you noticed during that, there was the color red on the dot, you could see, even though it was a black and white episode. I like that little subtle differentiator there until like the red color sort of came in to the second episode, sort of playing with the usage of color. And I thought that was sort of brilliant seeding even way back in the first episode. So moments like that work wonderfully, but there's also an undercurrent of horror throughout both of these episodes that I did not expect and was reveling in. The end of episode 1, where the husband is choking and slowly dying, and everything just feels off, and it just goes on a little bit too long, and nobody's reacting, and it just all feels like everyone's sort of aware of what's happening, but no one's doing anything, until the point where Vision has to reach into this guy's throat and save him. It was properly disturbing. I was like actually disturbed watching that. And for an MCU movie, a Disney movie, like Disney rarely reads to me as like somebody who could pull off horror effectively. And MCU, for all of its strengths, horror never was something that I immediately read as like, oh, it would be a good horror show. Especially this show of all things. So the very fact that they were able to pull off that like unnerving horror in that moment, I was adoring throughout all of that. So in the end, I will say I am fully on board for this show. I think it is exactly what the MCU needs. It needed to do something different. It needed to try something different. And of all the shows that I was sort of like looking forward to, of the sort of slate of MCU shows that are coming, this was the one that I was most excited for because it was going to do exactly that it was going to be doing something radically different with the medium. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited for the Loki show. I'm excited for, Captain America and the Winter Soldier. But those sort of read to me more as like elongated standard Marvel movies, like just movies that are kind of stretched out a little bit longer, and maybe they will justify themselves being television shows, and I hope they do. And if WandaVision is any indication of them justifying themselves being television shows, WandaVision does it. And so I'm very excited that this show is just doing something new with the MCU, but not wholly discounting it or dismissing it either. It's not doing something completely out of left field, because we do get those little hints. The beekeeper at the end of the episode, the hints of this little sword symbol. Again, I'll get into that in speculation throughout the episode. I think is just wonderful little like, oh, what's going on? And keeps you just intrigued enough for bigger MCU fans to sort of hang in there if they're not here for the sitcom send up. But I also think the sitcom send up is just so lovingly done, and so I think that and so effectively tied to who these people are as characters. So I absolutely am in love with WandaVision so far. So with that all said, I'm going to quick do some speculation. So if you're saying goodbye now, thank you so much for joining us. But let's quick dive into some speculation. Now, I do not know a ton about the comic series that this is based on. I don't even know what they're called, but I do know that there's a comic series that this is based on where Wanda created this world in order to have a life with Vision after Vision died in the comics, and they have children and everything, and it's very creepy and kind of messed up in those comics. Again, I haven't read them, but that's how they've been described to me. And at the end of episode 2, we clearly can tell that Wanda has some sort of agency within this world, that she can control it in some ways, but she doesn't have complete control. And I like that there's also little hints that other characters too may have some knowledge here and there. I believe the neighbor character, whose name I have not picked up just yet, but I will pick up hopefully by next episode. The actress from Transparent plays her. She says something like, everything can be done with a snap of your fingers. And that's sort of like a little hint that maybe she knows something. And so I like those little hints of like, who here knows, who's playing into it, or who's just sort of like zombified people who are just going to ignore the fact that Vision ripped a piece of food out of this guy's throat, or like passed something through his body. I'm just sort of curious about who knows what and where, and so I like those little hints. But clearly Wanda has some sort of agency in this. We also have two different agencies distinctly appearing in this. We had hints of Hydra with the watch in the middle of the commercial of episode 2, and we have this symbol with sword. Now, sword, I know, is sort of the space agency, like the sort of interstellar version of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I just got sword and S.H.I.E.L.D., just figured that one out as I said that. So that's a thing. Anyways, I'm dumb. I'm just realizing how stupid that was to not realize that. Anyways, sword is a version of S.H.I.E.L.D. That is sort of the interstellar power. So clearly there's some sort of power grab going on here between like Hydra and then the sword and S.H.I.E.L.D. Version going on here, and sort of Wanda's in the middle of it. And so I speculate that Wanda created this world, but something happened that both Hydra and sword and S.H.I.E.L.D. are interested in, and sort of in the middle of it. And sword wants to help Wanda, as we hear the voice like, who did this to you, Wanda? What did you do? But I'm going to believe that Wanda created this world in order to have Vision back in some way, but was not able to sort of keep the powers at bay in order to have her nice little homey world. That's all speculation on my part. I do know that would match up quite well with what the comics did of Wanda having been the one to create this world. So I'm hoping there's another little like twist on that Wanda wasn't the one that created this, that there's something else going on here, because that would feel a little bit too straightforward and ripped right from the comics. And MCU has done a fairly strong job of being inspired by the comics, but not necessarily doing a comic book storyline one for one. I don't think it's doing it one for one, but I would like a little bit of a twist on that that type of ending from the comics. Again, having not read the comics, so maybe I'm even getting those wrong, and that's not where they go. But that's sort of what I'm aware of from those comics. Overall, like I said, WandaVision is a really fun show. It may not be what you expect from an MCU show. It's definitely doing something different, but I think that if the MCU wants to grow and expand and do something new with Phase 4, I think this is exactly what it needed to do something new with the MCU formula, and I think that this is a great foot forward for the MCU. So thank you so much. If you liked this review, please don't forget to hit subscribe. You can also help me out on Patreon. But beyond that, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who are helping me achieve my dream of doing this full time, and especially a thank you to Catherine Lambeth, Miranda Janelle, Ashley Allen Bokikio, Eli Berg-Moss, Ashlyn Solstice, Michael D., Greg Gillum, Stephen Kleinard, Chamomile T., Ulysses the Pagan, Randy Thompson, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Wellington Marcus, Stephen Schuhart, Wayne Twitchell, Roar, Ish the Mad, Dominic Noble, Buttoneer, John Steele, Michael Beam, Jedi Indiana Jones, William Stewart, Gavin Robinson, Nathan Olson, BBD, Amanda Ronye Adanya, The Sir Spence, Jason Knott, Hannah F., Andrew Jorgensen, Maeve, Jasmine, Skylar Gray, Sean Piper, Andrew K., Bree Beecher, Subraxis, Jane Packard and Chloe Dollar, Nathan Steele, Tiffany Danger, Mari Neckar, Wendizzle Bizzle, Bush, W. Randy Eady, Mark the Edge, Piston Twisted Garage, Geek Filter, Gretchen Badger, Polly Mina, Jean Mithun, Sarah Bystam, Lysa, Din, Jacob Tovar, Celestial Dawn, Lily, Andrew Lamoureux, Raina C., Zone 1 Librarian, Michael Hardy, Corey Honkanen, and Vale Dunn. Thank you. You are all beautiful, beautiful people.